So I'd now like to invite Dr. Nachman Shai, Minister of Diaspora Affairs, to respond.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I don't know where you are all now. So anyhow, in Israel, it's early evening. So I wish you all good evening. I was given in advance some of the recommendations, so I'm quite familiar with the general direction, and I would like to respond. But first, I would like to thank everyone for the very intensive and in-depth work that you have done. It is quite impressive that JPPI led this discussion, and I've just heard from my good friend John Waskey how hard you worked with 16 discussions and 300 participants, and it included Australia, United States, and Israel, and some other information about the participants. So it makes it quite as I said, an impressive report. I would generally say that I'm quite familiar with the directions and with the recommendations. Not that I've because I've read them in advance, because actually that's what the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs is doing. And if there was no ministry like that, it should have been invested or started right now, because the need, as you realize, is there. The needs are there. And there should be a clear address on the Israeli side to respond to those needs and to those recommendations that you have presented to us. I'm afraid that you are not familiar with what the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs is doing, and on that, I'm a little bit disappointed that, as far as I know, our staff, neither the ministry nor my office, were involved in those discussions, because we could have already shared with you what we have done so far and what we are planning to do in general, in particular, since I took office 15 months ago. First and most important is that we were able to increase the budget of the ministry, and this year, we have the largest budget ever for all the ministry's operations, around 300 million shekels, which comes out to almost $100 million. That's much, much more than it was ever been given to the Ministry of Diaspora, which is not the largest ministry, as you may all guess. We also were able to add some staff to the ministry, so that helps us very much. Now, let me tell you what we are doing. Education is the core of our operation, formal and informal. We are covering through a project called United. We are covering currently over 150 schools, Jewish schools around the globe, and we intend every year to increase the number of schools that we are engaged with. At the same time, we are running another, I do it very shortly, another program called, it's part of United, but that deals with preparing informal education and creating a curriculum for digital, so it can be used by schools and educational institutes around the Jewish globe, and we launch it in November. So one program is already running and the other one there. But we are covering around 400 universities in the United States and elsewhere, university campuses, reaching 15,000 students a year, presenting programs about Judaism, Jewish studies, and Israel studies. And that program has been running now for the third or the fourth year, as far as I remember. And I can go into more details if you want, and I can share it with you in writing, because it will be very detailed, and there are a variety of programs that we have been running through an organization called Mosaic, which was established again a few years ago in a partnership of the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs and a number of philanthropists from the Jewish world, both in the United States and in Europe. You rightly dealt also with education in Israel, and here I should also mention the project called Amiyut, or Peoplehood, that started a year and a half ago, partnering with an Israeli institute, one of the Israeli institutes. It's based on carrying the financial burden together, and we have been approaching quite a number of organizations and individuals, including the Ministry of Education, including the military, the IDF, and others, offering them programs on Jewish diaspora. We are quite familiar of the lack of knowledge within the young generation of Israelis, in particular, but in the general public as well, about the diaspora. And education is no doubt, John Oskey is an expert on that education is the best way to approach as many as possible. We have met twice the Minister of Education, and we asked her to introduce in the formal curriculum the topic of Jewish diaspora. She was not very excited about that, I have to admit, and will continue the pressure. This week, Sunday, the government dedicated half of the weekly meeting on the Ministry of Education, and I spoke there, as I do in other topics, and I specifically mentioned the lack of diaspora affairs, Jewish diaspora studies in the curriculum of schools in Israel, but I can't promise you that after that it will be done. It's based on the attitude of the Ministry of Education that is not very excited about that, and about other topics as well, but we'll continue the pressure. We do the same with the military, where there are thousands and thousands of young people, and we should integrate diaspora, Jewish diasporas, the topic and the studies into their military courses, starting with the basic ones up to the highest level of the National War College of Israel, where it exists already, but we have to strengthen it. So we are very much aware of the need to deal more and more on diaspora affairs within Israel. It's a topic that was it's not part of our daily business, to be honest with you. And my role as a government minister is to keep pressing the media and other public institutes to deal with the diaspora. I'm telling you, based on my general experience, including the specific one in the past year, it's not easy. And the public doesn't listen very much when it comes to diaspora, but doesn't mean that we have to give up. We'll continue the pressure. Talking about physical meetings, we all familiar with Birthright and Masa, but we added this year another program called Route 1. It's based on a basic donation of Bernie Marcus of $20 million, and we decided to join the program, which will bring to Israel thousands of high school students for a few weeks from the United States and later on from Europe. And there'll be governmental money there as well. There's another program called Momentum, which brings Jewish women to Israel. We have brought so far almost 10,000, and will bring more in the future. So we are very much open to all the ideas that were raised by you. I will wait for a detailed report, and I can, at the same time, I will make sure that each and every one of you will get a report about what we have been doing, what we are doing, and what our plans are, so you'll know what the directions where we are taking now to strengthen the relationship between the Jewish diaspora and the state of Israel. That's it for the time being.